IT show. My name is Tayo Adewusi, welcoming you to this special exclusive interview with one of the outstanding personalities we have in the ICT industry. When is, of course, to come in to take on those outstanding industry players. Yes, 2023 top 20 CEOs in the ICT industry. And I'm privileged to have in our midst immediate past president of the Association of Telecom Companies of Nigeria, who is also the president of the Medallion data centers. Talking about no other person than Engr Ikechukwu Nnamani.
It's an interesting year, especially in Nigeria, given that it's a year of political transition. So a lot of activities this year is being viewed from the political activities going on. Naturally, and not just that, this is global, right? In an election year, and then the year immediately after election, where especially there's a change in government, like what we are witnessing from one president to another, it doesn't matter whether it's the same party or not. You always see this phase where everybody wants to take some time to study, understand what is going on, understand the new government policy, understand the direction the new government want to go. And then people naturally will adjust their business strategy in line with that. So we anticipate that most of this year will be more of strategizing, once there's clarity on the political structure.
Yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah, then everybody will key in. And but what we are hoping and praying is that there will be disruption in terms of already established business plans, already established, projects ongoing. We are hoping that irrespective of whoever is the new president, that is continuity, so that people's investments that has been done over the last 2 to 3 years in particular, that should be maturing by this time, does not get reversed, because that is what will create a challenge if we start seeing that. So we are hoping that at least the things will be more positive, right, from a business standpoint. Well, it's an interesting one. Just last week, I happened to participate in an event with the regulator, the Nigerian Competition Commission, and this subject matter came up. And the key point is, if we take a state of the industry assessment, what you find out is that in the area of especially voice telephony, we've done very well from a subscriber-based standpoint. But if you start looking at other areas, especially areas that has to do with the digital economy, with emerging technologies, with broadband penetration, with access to key content, especially low latency applications that are coming up now, vis-a-vis running on things like 5G and the rest, you notice we're just starting, and it's not surprising, because as we said in the past, it's just in 2020 that the digital economy was formally launched by the current president. So that's literally 2 years plus, right? So it's going to be a while. A lot of infrastructure is being put in place to move us from where we are, but a lot of work still needs to be done if we are to achieve that. So from voice telephony, yes, we are the biggest in Africa. We've done well, but the industry and the service is evolving. It's moving away from just voice to non-data. You had an event, was it last year, where you see data is the new oil, and if you recall, even in that event, the general concept is that it's not yet the new oil for Nigeria. It's potentially the new oil from a revenue generating standpoint, but we are not yet there. We still need to put in all the building blocks that is necessary to make that happen. The answer is yes, we're on the right track, but we also need to be realistic. The infrastructure before now have not existed at the level it should exist. The infrastructure is just being put in place. Companies like ours are spending a lot to put this infrastructure in place, right? And the reality of it is until the core infrastructure that is needed to support these services and policies is in place, you can't do anything about it. So the effort really should be towards accelerating the progress, towards ensuring that the core infrastructure needed, data centers for instance, fiber connectivity for instance, and then, which we always try to take away as if it's different from core infrastructure, power. You know, we still don't have good utility power supply, right? And then you have other issues. But if you take this trade, for instance, you know, it's still a long way to go. But they all have to work together. So it's only when the infrastructure is readily available that somebody can just walk up and have access to it. Then you can now start looking at enforcing. If not, what are you going to enforce, right? If somebody tells you today, hey, I need to host my infrastructure in Sokoto, you know, there's nothing in Sokoto as of today. There's no data center in Sokoto as of today, right? So where would the man host? He's either come to some other state or he finds himself hosting outside the country. So that's the reality of where we are. And it's a work in progress because I personally know a lot of effort and resources is being put in place as we speak to put this infrastructure. The only thing is that everybody, especially the government, have to also realize this gap and support the process to make it happen. It's not a case of government building these things like going into a data center. No, it's not for government to do. The key ones they need to do, for instance, is power, which normally a private person should not be involved in generating power, you know, things like removing all these bottlenecks with multiple taxation, multiple regulation, you know, right-of-way issues that has hampered the spread and growth of fiber networks, you know, working on forests. In case people need to bring in infrastructure, you need forest. If you don't have access to forest to import, then your project is dead on arrival. So those are the role government can play to assist the private sector in ensuring the infrastructure is in place. Then once that is there, then we can start talking about usability, you know, because the demand also have to be there. So all the enabling environment has to be in place that will ensure that when these infrastructures are in place, the usability is also good. So government have to digitize its operations, for instance, because that is where you start having data that you can use. So, but it's a work in progress. I've always said, and again, I refer back to the last event you had. In my speech, I said we shouldn't be naive to assume that this thing is going to happen in one day. These things take time. Most times, if you start a new data center project, for instance, the minimum time it will take you 3 to 4 years from design to implementation, depending on what you are building, right? So that's the reality of it. What is the cost of funds in Nigeria compared to the cost of funds outside Nigeria? If you go to a bank today and you want to take a loan, they will charge you minimum, when you add everything, you are averaging 25 to 30% per annum. Abroad, if you take similar facility, they are charging you not more than 5%, or everything added, no matter what they add. Most times it hovers between 1 to 2%. But worst case, so it's what it is. The cost of fund, it's as simple as that. These things are not financed by the government. Private people are financing through private funds. and the cost of fund is simply too high as at this time. Now, the way these things work, if you check the graph, the higher cost and investment is at implementation. Then over time, as usability increases, the unit price starts going down for everybody. It's just what it is. It's a basic economic situation. Okay? If you and if you don't have access to long-term funds, it means you have to return that fund faster. So you have to charge more to be able to return the fund faster. Which now means people will say it's expensive and you may not even get the usage quantity that you need over time. So what you normally would see is a situation where over time, as the usability increases, the unit cost to everybody will start reducing over time, right? Because the return on investment or the cost of the investment hopefully would have been returned. And then once an investor gets to that point where it's just profit, they can afford to charge very minimal because it's not profit. But when your cost of fund is very high, when your time to repay back the fund is very short, you literally have no option except you don't do that project than to try to charge something that can meet those two funding requirements you have. And that takes us back to funding, which is fundamental. And a lot is also going on in that. You hopefully, if it works out, we may see some changes in this area. Funding is the problem. Cost of fund is the problem. There are conversations going on. Some have said Telecom bank, some have said, but key, irrespective of the name you target, the right funding have to be in place. That's the title or the name of it is immaterial. The key thing is what is the right funding that has to do with the optimal interest rate, so that you are not if you are paying 30-something% all in. There are some banks that are giving all in 30-something%. It means that project must have a return of upwards of 80% by the time you take out operations and every other thing. Which business gives you that, except you want to charge some high amount to the end users, right? So if you take all that into consideration and you have funding sources that meet that, long-term funding that gives a good gestation period for infrastructure to be implemented before you will start servicing it, so the moratorium is reasonable enough. Two, the interest on it is low enough that by the time you start paying back, it's not back-breaking and you don't need to charge a crazy amount. Once you tie that in and the right projects are funded, these things will change.
And even as the costs of browsing, cost of making calls, as the costs are abnormal, like you have posited, high good quality of service. It hasn't improved.
Yeah, that's it has not improved for several reasons. Some of it you would say is tied to service providers not having enough coverage. Again, that goes back to the other thing we've already discussed. I don't need to repeat it, right? The challenges with implementing infrastructure. The second is also cases of deliberate vandalization. You don't want to know how many times service operators' infrastructure has been vandalized. Some of it intentional, some of it by mistake. Sometimes we road construction, they pull up fiber, so nobody, as an operator, you have to go back at your own cost to fix it. Because the man that has done it has gone his way. And there's no way to go back to hold them accountable, right? Then you also see a situation where it's just what it is, right? They are part of the country that the state, local government, and other agencies have decided to see ICT infrastructure and services as a way to generate maximum return on a monthly basis in terms of their IGR. So they put conditions, including sometimes stopping service providers from working or fixing stuff as a way that you must. We've had cases where sometimes they go and shut down base stations. So the subscriber is sitting in his house, he's not getting good quality, and he doesn't know that it's just the local government agency that is responsible. He will blame the operator, but at the end of the day, it's the local government agency that is actually at the heart of it. So we need to put all this in perspective. But I would always be the first person to say that there's still more that needs to be done from the service provider standpoint. But I know enough to also know that all the blame does not lie with the service providers.
For an operator to tell me that power is an issue, we know power has been an issue in Nigeria for the past 20-something years. So it shouldn't be really.
No, but you just answered your question. If power has been an issue for 20 years, then the problem has not been solved for 20 years. It's what it is. You just answered it yourself. The same problem has been there, and that is why the issues has remained. You can't do until what's that adage? You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. Is that not the definition of the same madness, right? It's what it is. The problem you should be asking is that 20 years ago, you said power is an issue. 10 years later, power has been solved. So why you still say power is an issue? But if 20 years later, power has not been solved, then it's still an issue. Everything we just explained now, including access to right funding, multiple taxation, multiple regulation, everything I just said has been an issue from day one. And the big question what you should say is that why is it taking government this long to solve this problem that has been flagged all these years? The little progress we are seeing is because private sector individuals decide to take risks, massive risks in the country. That despite all this, they still want to go ahead. That is why we are even seeing the little progress we are seeing. If not, and truth be told, Nigeria is currently not the most investable destination globally. It's a statement of fact. So when you see people making investments here, they really need to be respected for having faith in the country. That is the truth of the matter. Because the same fund you are investing here could be invested in other places where some of these issues does not exist. So some of us that have taken it upon ourselves, bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment into the country, is because we still believe in the country and we still feel that these things will not remain forever, that someday in the future, hopefully in the near future, some of these issues will change. Then we can start seeing positive outcome of the investment. I tell you clearly, Nigeria today is not the most exciting investment destination for most investors because of all these issues that has been there for all these years and for some reason has not yet been solved. It's the reality of the matter.
But don't you have a relationship with government? Don't you discuss with them? And if no, what I'm saying.
Again, it's good we're having this conversation, right? Because the good thing is that you are also a member of the industry. You have events on an annual basis. If you check your event, even the one for this year, you have these government people showing up there. So you also engage with them. So my question back to you is, in all your engagement with them, what have they done to solve this problem? Because you engage with them just like us. It's not a case of engaging with them. The reality is something needs to be done. It's not about, it's never in anybody's interest if you try to identify who's at fault. No, the problem is we've identified a problem. How do we solve it? That should be the focus. That should be the focus. And it requires people just making up their mind that we want to solve this problem for the good of us all. And believe me, these problems are all solvable. That is the interesting part. And as I told you, that is why people like us are fortunate to, because we know that these problems exist, but they are solvable. If the right people decide to do the right things. These problems are all solvable. That is the truth. Because if we don't believe it's solvable, then there's no investment, and no reason to do any investment. But because we believe it's solvable, and we keep making all the effort we can, and hoping that eventually in the near future, some of these issues, because most of them are man-made, most of them are things that can be solved. It's not like we are dealing with natural disasters here that we say it's out of our control. Literally all this problem is man-made and can be solved if people do the right thing. can do is keep what we are doing now, discuss it, hope it gets to the right people, and hope that they decide to also support in the work of progress that some of us are working on.
Because it brings me, if we are having issues, maybe the executives are not listening to what we are saying. Have there been proper representations, for instance, to national assemblies, to the state assemblies, on these issues?
The answer is yes. Again, you do what you can do, you represent, you speak, and then you leave them to do what they need to do. You can't do somebody's job when it's not within your jurisdiction to do. The maximum you can do is go there, present, then it's up to them. So the bigger questions and the bigger stuff should actually be directed at these people, if you ask me. Because what you guys have done sometimes is focus on the private sector, operator. No, the reality is that you should actually be spending more time going forward, discussing with these government units, and hopefully we may get results.
Okay, I know we try year in year out to make sure we have the regulators, we have the operators, we bring them.
But it goes beyond the regulators and operators. I can almost tell you for free that the regulators and operators are aligned. But the regulators have people they report to. They also need to align. The regulators and the operators are, I can almost say, are aligned because they understand these things. Is the other arm of government that also needs to now align with the regulators and the operators. That is where the gap still exists. The federal, state, and local government area, in all forms of it. That's where the challenge still is. There's still a disconnect that needs to be bridged.
I spoke to someone in the industry, and we always have we mention the G's of this world, and we embraced the 5G with all forms of expectation, high hopes, hypes, and everything. But the 5G is here, and over a year now that has been licensed. One operator has rolled out, the other is yet to roll out, and yet it is not affected. It looks as if it's not even existent. So why the noise about 5G?
Do you have a 5G handset?
I don't.
How many people you know have 5G handsets?
Very, very few.
So what are you talking about? An operator spends millions and millions and millions of dollars to roll out a 5G network, and the usage is not there. So what do? You don't have a 5G handset. So how many people you don't have? How will you see the impact when people are not using it? It's what it is. It's simply what it is. It's what it is. So somebody can turn around and tell the operators, why did you even pick up the 5G spectrum when there's no potential usage of it? The truth of the matter is 5G in most other markets is more of machine-to-machine technology, Internet of Things. So when we are looking at it as the same stuff that we can use 3G for, basic telephony, basic browsing, we've missed it. And I can bet you the operators that have the 5G spectrum, especially one of them we all know very well, they know this, and that's probably the target audience they're focused on. And these are back-end stuff that people on the street may not know. It's running on 5G. But it's not for me to discuss their business plan. I'm sure they know what they are doing. The kind of money they spend to even buy the spectrum, I can assure you they wouldn't have spent that money if they've not done this analysis about the state of the market. So the point I'm simply making is that 5G should not be seen as the same as 3G in terms of GSM, as we call it, every man on the street. using it. No, it's for specific people, it's for specific industries and services. And I'm sure and I hope I'm not wrong that those that have obtained the license and spectrum for 5G, they've done all this analysis. So, yeah, before going for the spectrum.
Because I'm just thinking that maybe.
So not to cut you off, the easiest way to know if 5G is working, go pick up a 5G handset and see if it works or not. Until you do that, you don't know if it's working or not. The man we see on the street don't have 5G, so how would you know if it's working or not? That's just the plain simple reality of it.
Was it because the entry point of so many operators, the entry point was down too high to now not make it possible for competition? Because even now,
how? I'm still trying to. The point we've not got to.
What is? Yeah.
You know, the premise of your conversation is an assumption that 5G is not available, quote unquote.
Yes.
And I'm questioning that assumption because there's no proof it's not. Because the only way you can prove is pick up a 5G handset and see if it's working or not. Until we do that, we can't say it's not available. And I'm also explaining to you that 5G services and the usability is different from 3G and even different from 4G. So we will be looking at the wrong metrics in trying to judge 5G education in Nigeria. That's all I'm saying. You follow?
Okay. Let me leave that.
I have a 5G phone, right? And I tell you, I see 5G, but whether I use it, don't use it, is a whole new ballgame, depending on the service you want to use. But I know for sure that 5G is not meant for basic telephony type service that you can do with 3G. It's not even meant for the kind of data services that you can do with 4G. Do you understand? So, in doing that analysis, in fact, if you ask me, a better entity to have that conversation with is one of the people that have got the spectrum, that have seen the rolled out, and ask them what services, what parts of service are you guys rolled out, what is the usability, what are the challenges you are facing. Do you understand? Then you start getting a much clearer status of what it is. But to the best of my knowledge, until somebody is having a 5G enabled device and you are in one of the networks that have the 5G spectrum and you try to use it and it's either not working or not working the way you expect, then you can say, okay, you've got data to say it's not working. Until then, you will be using the wrong metrics and also using the wrong class of service availability to try to judge it. The man on the street that you and I know.
Housing data centers in Nigeria. Some people are spread their tentacles beyond Nigeria just for the traffic. Is there traffic? Is the data centers in Nigeria commercially viable? The reason why I'm asking this question is that we have data centers in Cote d'Ivoire, in Republic of Benin, in Ghana. The cost of housing them, even in the UK, the cost of housing them there, and you using in Nigeria is cheaper than the data centers that are housed.
What's a data center? In its basic, simple form, a data center is just a building that has been fitted to be able to support servers, connectivity, equipment, and in its basic form. That's what it's just. It's not this place we are sitting. I can convert it into a data center tomorrow if I want to. My Victoria Island data center, when I went in there, it was a rundown supermarket that I converted. Today, that is the number one peering point across West Africa. Today, close to 70% of internet exchange traffic in Nigeria is in that data center. But I converted it from a rundown old supermarket into what it is today. Right? So, we need to separate the data center itself, which is a physical building that has got all the right infrastructure, cooling, power, security, connectivity, everything is in place, right? From the services that is run out of a data center. Again, I use our data center as an example. In our data center today, we've got all the submarine cables in Nigeria being distributed in our data center. From the subsea where they come from, fiber is used, they bring it into our data center as a distribution point. So you name it, every one of the submarine cable, if you come to our data center, you can pick up those traffic because it's present here. The data center does not own the submarine cable. There are other people that own it, but they bring it into the data center as a marketplace to be able to, but ISPs and others to pick up bandwidth from. Okay, so that is just one example. Submarine cable operators. You've got the managed service providers. These are people that put servers, web hosting companies, for instance. We've got a lot of web hosting companies, including some of the biggest in Africa, located in our data center. What do? Different from the submarine guy. They may take bandwidth from the submarine, they may not. But they've got their servers there. You've got the registrars, the domain operators, right, that sell domain and sell hosting services. You come to them, they give you a space in their server as a managed service, you become their customer. In my data center, for instance, we've got the .ng domain servers by NIRA. They don't own the data center. We are not NIRA, we don't manage the domain, but they are our customer. They are located in the data center as a customer. And then connected to that is the various registrars that sell the .ng domain. Many of them, there are so many, connected at the NIRA servers, okay, as a customer. You've got the metro fiber people that do metro fiber, connecting several banks, they are all in my data center, right? What do there? That is where they connect to others, they also connect to bandwidth providers, so it's a marketplace, right? You've got the telcos. I've got the various telcos sitting in our data center. From there, they connect to their switching center or they connect to the closest base station and the rest. If you go there, you see a big tower. Many of them use it for their microwave connectivity as well as their sensor connectivity in the same data center premises, right? I can go on and on to explain tons of different, more than 10 classes of categories. And within each category, you see tons of service providers. Some do multiple, some do single, including international players. We've got Facebook, we've got all these, Orange and the rest of them, located in the data center. Some of them are providing services to bank, embassy, you name it. Ultimately, some provide directly to subscribers, especially the ISPs. Everything within the data center. If you follow, then you have, of course, national infrastructure. In our data center, for instance, the SCC cybersecurity monitoring network is located in our data center, both Lagos and Abuja. Right? So I can name all these. The reason I'm trying to give you this is if one understands what a data center is, then your question won't even arise because there's no way you do all these things from Ghana, no. It's like comparing Apple to Orange. And we are discussing localization of data. What we are simply saying is that instead of Central Bank of Nigeria, for instance, or UBA, taking its users or its bank customers' data and hosting it in GoDaddy, they should host it in a Nigerian-based entity located here in Nigeria. So you go to Upper Link, you go to Google Host, you go to, we have tons and tons of Nigerian-based companies that have their servers here in Nigeria that they should host with them. You can discuss pricing, you can discuss other variations. quality of service and the rest, but it's different. All we are simply saying is that as a fundamental starting point, host those content within data centers located in Nigeria. That is localization of content we are discussing. Because the moment you do that, there are a lot of benefits, including security, including the cost. Because if you host outside, you have to pay the foreign company with forex. If you host in Nigeria, you are paying with naira. So it reduces capital flight. We are talking of latency. If people in Nigeria want to access their the servers hosted within Nigeria, it's faster because it's within the country. If it's outside, you have to go out and come back. So the quality is also reduced when you have to go a longer distance because of the latency that is introduced. So all these are the benefit of a localized data center. Now, there is another part of it, which is you are sitting here in Lagos and you have your infrastructure in a data center here in Lagos. The example I gave, somebody is sitting in Sokoto that want to access service. What is the link between Lagos and Sokoto that man will be able to access that content efficiently and cheap enough for him here in Lagos? If there is no long distance link between two operators, one in Lagos, one in Sokoto, what you notice is that that operator or the provider in Sokoto will not be able to access it efficiently. So the area of localization now comes in where somebody goes to Sokoto and put what we call an edge data center. I don't want to hold this conversation with detailed lecture on data center, but you have classifications. There are different types, many different types of data centers, each playing different role. But if you have an edge data center sitting in Sokoto that serves people in Sokoto, it means if the man in Sokoto, and this is where the Nigerian Internet Exchange Point comes in and it's very important. So if you have an Internet Exchange Point in Sokoto, everybody connected in Sokoto, that traffic stays within Sokoto as long as it's meant to be exchanged in Sokoto. It's only what now needs to come to Lagos, Abuja, and other parts that goes. So you don't have a situation where a traffic that is originated in Sokoto, that needs to be terminated in Sokoto, first comes to Lagos and then starts going back. It's equivalent to you are staying in Ikeja, you want to come to Victoria Island for a meeting, but for some reason, Third Mainland Bridge and every other bridge that connects mainland to the island is blocked. So what you now do, you now hop on a helicopter, fly to Benin City, pick another flight and land in another airport in Victoria Island. What should be a very short, cheap distance, because more expensive, takes more time. And also, that affects the quality. That's the three things we are discussing here. You follow? So, it's important, it's essential that you have these data centers in all the various classifications of it. Because each one plays a different role. An edge data center plays a different role from a regional data center. It also plays a different role from a hyperscale data center that most times are resident in big cities where you have submarine cables. So in Nigeria, for instance, if you are looking for hyperscale data centers, most likely they'll be located in places like Lagos, Port Harcourt, all these cities that is by the coast, because that is where the submarine cable comes in. Then if you start going outside of Lagos, you start looking at regional data centers or edge data centers, as the case may be. But we can spend a long hours discussing data centers. You know, that's my field. So I don't want to bore you so much on it. I think I spent a lot of your time on it already.
Wow, that's quite because of course, because there's always been a misconception about it. So I think you are able to shed the light that the issue really is about the content of it being hosted and not of all the other aspects of the business that takes place. But having said that, I know a lot of companies come in and they still do business with Medallion data centers.
Yeah.
But I know Medallion Center would be an over-twist that wants more business. There are other data centers in Nigeria. So the question is, why? Why should, wherever I am hosting, why should I leave it? What's the advantage? What's the advantage of coming into Medallion data center? What's the edge?
Good question. Let me state this, and I state it clearly. I know, again, truth be told, there are some data centers that feel the key to their success is trying to look into the customer base within Medallion and trying to take it to their own data center. We are not one of those. We feel the market is still too small for people to start playing such game. Naturally, some companies will not sit in only one data center because of the nature of their business. Some of them, for redundancies and all, would naturally want to sit in more than one data center if they can afford it. So we have that going on. So if you look at the data centers, you could probably see similar customers sitting in the same. And it's purely based sometimes for technical redundancy, sometimes it's based on proximity to the end user, because the data centers are scattered in different parts of the state and the country, right? So that is one thing to know. The second thing to note really is, at the end of the day, people go to where they feel they will maximize their infrastructure. Today, we benefit greatly because we are the most connected data center, at least as of today, in the country. So people coming to us, it saves them, it's like a one-stop shop where you get to meet everybody you want to meet with. And that is what has driven our growth over the years. Literally on a weekly basis, we get new people coming into the space. And most of them, sometimes as much as 95% of the new people we take are people coming because they want to do business with people already existing in a data center. So it's not like they show up and say, oh, we need space. We say what for the same because we want to connect to so and so person already sitting in your data center, right? So we see a lot of that, right? And that's why we are building new ones, because we've run out of space. So we just, in the next few months, we will launch a new data center. We have a lot of new data centers that should be coming up in the next few months to expand the capacity of what we already have, right? I don't want to use this as a place to discuss that. Very soon, we will have a special stuff on our new data center built and what's happening with them. Very important stuff we are doing in that space. So, but the key point is, it's not for me a case of why would somebody leave my competitor come to me. It's purely a case of you need to be where your business is served the best. And I would do, if I was in your shop, I would do the same. I wouldn't go to any place where my business is not served the best, right? And that for us is the key. People should go to places where their business is best served. And if it's with us, fine. If it's with any of our competitors, no problem. But I also know that we do, from a quality standpoint, from infrastructure standpoint, we do enough that as long as we have space to give you, most people will still want to do business with us. That much I know based on what is happening.
You see that this episode of this exclusive interview is having an opportunity to hit the nail on the head. In a line, I'll just be laughing to say that this is one of the rare interviews we are having with Engr Ikechukwu Nnamani, not as president of ATCON, but now as president of Medallion Data Centers. This is a no-holds-barred interview. Thank you so much for being part of this. Wait, subsequently, when we bring another top CEOs to the ICT Watch medium. Thanks so much for being part of this. See you. Bye-bye.